I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love.
Our story today is about Ahithophel, an account of betrayal. We have all been stung by betrayal several times in our lives. Rather than open old wounds, we will introduce our story by considering the most famous betrayal in American history. Benedict Arnold is America's most notorious traitor. At the beginning of the Revolutionary War, Arnold was a hero, a star, and maybe even the best military leader of that war. He developed bold strategies and exhibited fearless leadership. He led the Continental Army to its first victory in the Revolutionary War, the capture of Fort Ticonderoga, in May 1775. Arnold also led another major victory at Saratoga in 1777. That battle was a turning point in the war because the revolutionaries' win encouraged the French to support them. During the battle at Saratoga, Arnold suffered a severe leg injury when his horse was shot and fell on him. However, he quickly returned to his position and refused to let it slow him down. Arnold did not believe the Continental Army sufficiently rewarded his achievements, especially after his leg injury. He also felt that others took credit for his tactics and that Army leadership passed over him when handing out promotions. Arnold mingled with Loyalist sympathizers in Philadelphia and married into a Loyalist family. Many historians believe his wife facilitated Arnold's plans to switch sides. While he was fretting over his treatment by the army, his wife spent money as if it were in limitless supply. Her lavish spending resulted in large debts, which placed a heavy burden on Arnold. His debts were climbing due to his wife's lavish spending, and his frustration with Washington for insufficient recognition reached the boiling point. Arnold was resentful, bitter, and in need of money. His wife was a close friend of British Major John André and kept in contact with him when he became head of the British espionage system in New York. André was aware of Arnold's dissatisfaction, and they opened secret negotiations, with Arnold's wife relaying their messages to each other. André convinced Arnold to betray the Continental Army and spy for the British. Arnold tarnished all his successes and erased his hero status when he betrayed his fellow revolutionaries by deciding to spy for the British. General George Washington offered Arnold an army commander position in 1780, but Arnold pushed for control of West Point's defenses along the Hudson River. This site was strategic for communication and transportation in and out of New England. Arnold planned to weaken the defenses and hand over West Point to the British in return for £20,000. That would be several $1,000,000 today. He also hoped to lure Washington toward the enemy so the British could capture him. When the Continental Army captured André, they found that he had documents in his possession that incriminated Arnold. When Washington saw the documents, he tried to have Arnold arrested. Arnold managed to flee to a British warship. He was awarded a commission as a brigadier general in the British Army and began fighting against his former comrades. He expected honor from the British, but they did not trust him. After all, if a person betrays someone else for you, he will likely betray you if the right opportunity arises. Arnold survived the war, moved to England, and died there in 1801 in obscurity and regret. The consequences of betrayal are often tragic. In the United States, his name is synonymous with betrayal. In Benedict Arnold's story, we saw the reasons for his betrayal and some of the reactions to it. Before we move on to Ahithophel's betrayal, let's consider more reason for, and reactions to, betrayal. The theme of betrayal resonates with us because it touches on universal fears and emotions. It also reminds us of the complexity of human relationships and the vulnerabilities that come with trust. Betrayal results in broken trust and shattered expectations. Whether it's in friendships, relationships, or even within ourselves, betrayal leaves a scar. While it can be deeply painful, it also offers opportunities for growth. So, why do people resort to betrayal? People might betray others for personal gain, such as power, wealth, or status. For example, Delilah betrayed Samson to the Philistines for a lot of silver. Fear is often a factor in betrayal. Some may betray someone to try to protect themselves or their loved ones from a perceived threat. Jealousy can lead people to betray others. Jealousy may manifest itself through resentment, envy, or unresolved grudges. We saw this in Benedict Arnold. Poor communication is a common source of betrayal. It leads to misunderstandings, lack of transparency, and false assumptions, all of which erode trust and lead to betrayal. Ideological differences cause conflicts over beliefs or values that can lead to betrayal. We see this when politicians betray their voters when they change political parties during their term of office. The reactions to betrayal can vary greatly depending on the individual and the context of the situation. Here are some common responses people might experience. First, some emotional reactions. Hurt and sadness. Betrayal can lead to feelings of deep emotional pain and grief, especially if the betrayer is someone close. Anger or outrage. Many feel intense anger toward the person who betrayed them, and that anger can last for a long time. Shock and disbelief. People may struggle to process the betrayal, especially if it was unexpected. Behavioral reactions vary widely. Confrontation. Some respond by addressing the betrayer directly, seeking answers or resolution. Withdrawal. Some people might isolate themselves to try to protect themselves from further harm. Revenge. There are some who take immediate action seeking revenge for the harm they experienced. Psychological responses can be serious. Loss of trust. Betrayal often damages trust not only in the betrayer but also in others, leading to difficulty trusting again. Self-doubt and blame. Some may question their own judgment or blame themselves for not seeing the betrayal coming. Anxiety and fear. Worrying about future betrayals and becoming overly cautious are common responses. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is difficult for most people and is especially hard when there has been betrayal. The Bible addresses the theme of betrayal in many stories and passages, offering insight into human relationships, sin, and forgiveness. Let's highlight 5 of the best examples. In Genesis 37, Joseph's brothers betray him out of jealousy by selling him into slavery. This betrayal sets the stage for Joseph's rise to power in Egypt and eventual reconciliation with his brothers, demonstrating how God can bring good out of even the darkest circumstances. In Judges 16, Delilah betrays Samson for money when she reveals the secret of his strength to the Philistines. This is an example of betrayal motivated by greed. In 2 Samuel chapters 15 to 18, we read about Absalom's rebellion against his father, King David. Absalom's betrayal stemmed from personal grievances and political ambition, leading to a civil war and great heartbreak for David. In 2 Samuel 16, Ahithophel, David's trusted counselor, betrays him by siding with Absalom during Absalom's rebellion. His story highlights the pain of being betrayed by someone close and trusted. In Matthew 26, we have one of the most well-known instances of betrayal, Judas' betrayal of Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. This act led to Jesus' arrest and crucifixion. Judas' betrayal is often seen as the ultimate symbol of betrayal. We will consider in more detail the 2 examples presented in 2 Samuel, Absalom and Ahithophel, with an emphasis on Ahithophel. According to his descriptions in the Bible, Ahithophel was a wise counselor whose advice was sought, accepted, and followed by all Israel as if it were the very word of God. He was active during King David's reign, a period of great political intrigue and personal drama. The additional stories about him in the Jewish Talmud indicate he was not a fan of King David. Although Ahithophel was reluctant to give David any advice, David recognized his wisdom and eagerly sought guidance from him. To better understand Ahithophel's story, we must review some of the intrigue and drama of King David's reign. We all remember the story of David's adulterous affair with Bathsheba and his arrangement for the death of her husband, Uriah. The prophet, Nathan, confronted David about his adultery and participation in the murder of a loyal follower. Speaking for God, Nathan told David that part of the penalty would be evil would rise against him from within his own house, and someone would publicly sleep with his wives. Many commentators believe that Ahithophel was Bathsheba's grandfather. If that is the case, it is easy to understand his dislike for David. A few years after that disastrous affair, Absalom, one of David's sons, killed another of his sons, Amnon. They had different mothers. Absalom orchestrated the murder of Amnon because he had raped Absalom's full sister, Tamar. David failed to fulfill his duties as a father and as king when he did not deal with the rape. Absalom was extremely disgusted with his father's failure. So he took matters into his own hands, killed his brother, and fled to Egypt. After 3 years in exile, David invited Absalom to return to Jerusalem. However, Absalom was not allowed in the court and could not see David, which was totally unsatisfactory in Absalom's eyes. After 2 years of that arrangement, Absalom requested and received permission to enter the king's presence. David welcomed and kissed him, not realizing this was just another step in Absalom's plan to supplant him on the throne. Absalom acquired horses, a chariot, and 50 men to run before him to build his image as a powerful man who should be king. As he worked to undermine David's authority, he sat at the city gate, presenting himself as a better judge than David. David appears to have been oblivious to the power move being played out right in front of him. After years of preparation, Absalom was ready to make his move to dethrone David and become king of Israel. Absalom's betrayal fulfilled part of Nathan's prophecy about David's punishment for the Bathsheba and Uriah debacle: evil will rise up against you in your own house. Absalom went to Hebron, where he called on the leaders of all the tribes to join him, and they declared him king of Israel. Their readiness to join Absalom indicates that there was widespread dissatisfaction with David as king. This division foreshadowed the division of Israel when Solomon died. He then called on Ahithophel to join him in Hebron. David's chief counselor became Absalom's chief counselor. Here is an act of betrayal. Like Benedict Arnold, Ahithophel yielded to personal feelings of animosity and switched sides. Many scholars believe that David wrote Psalm 55 about this betrayal. In verses 12 to 15, we read, "It is not an enemy who taunts me. I could bear that. It is not my foes who so arrogantly insult me. I could have hidden from them. Instead, it is you, my equal, my companion and close friend. What good fellowship we once enjoyed." Absalom's rebellion grew stronger as more people joined with him. When David heard that Absalom and his supporters were coming to take control of Jerusalem, he decided to leave Jerusalem rather than fight. This demonstrated his faith in God's sovereignty. David's companions, who fought for him in the wilderness while running from King Saul, were still ready to give their lives to defend him. Although David was betrayed by his son, he still did not want anyone to hurt Absalom. David so loved his son that he would forgive him for anything and protect him from harm. As King David and his household fled from Jerusalem, he did 2 things of note. First, he left 10 concubines behind to tend to the king's house. Second, he asked a friend, Hushai, to join Absalom and try to counter any advice Ahithophel might give Absalom. When Absalom entered Jerusalem, Ahithophel advised him to have sex in public view with the 10 concubines whom David left behind. The purpose of that atrocious act was to make David hate Absalom so much they might never be reconciled. That act fulfilled the second part of God's word to David through Nathan: "Your neighbor will have sex in public with your wives." The next step was critical. After Absalom and his forces entered Jerusalem and took control of the city, what was next? Ahithophel said Absalom should send his troops to kill David. This plan was tactically brilliant. He believed Absalom had to eliminate David to solidify his hold on the crown. While almost everyone agreed, God had Absalom ask Hushai what he thought. This request gave Hushai an opportunity to counter Ahithophel's advice, as David had asked. Hushai reminded Absalom that David and his men were mighty warriors with extensive fighting experience and must be as mad as a mama bear who saw her cub killed. If David and his men attacked Absalom's men and killed a few of them, the rest of them would likely run home. Hushai's advice was to take the time to gather as many men as possible from all of Israel to gain a huge advantage in numbers. Then, Absalom's men could overwhelm and kill David and his men. Absalom concluded that was a better plan than the one Ahithophel proposed. Then Hushai got word to David, and he and his entourage were able to escape to a strong defensive position while Absalom was busy gathering more troops. When Ahithophel saw that Absalom had rejected his counsel in favor of Hushai's, he was certain that Absalom would fail and David would return to power in Jerusalem. Since he had burned his bridges with David, he returned home and hanged himself. Like Benedict Arnold, Ahithophel's betrayal led to personal disaster. Absalom's rebellion culminated in a decisive battle in the forest of Ephraim, where Absalom's forces were defeated. During the battle, Absalom's hair became entangled in a tree, leaving him vulnerable. Despite David's explicit orders to spare him, Absalom was killed by Joab, David's commander. Absalom's betrayal of his father led to his death. It was another betrayal ending in personal disaster. These betrayals and almost all other betrayals illustrate the dangers of a leader's failure to address grievances to maintain loyalty. This is a warning for every leader, in the home, at work, and in government. In conclusion, the Bible warns against betraying another's confidence. Reflects on the sorrow of being betrayed by a close friend. Emphasizes the importance of forgiveness, even when betrayed. Encourages believers not to seek revenge but to overcome evil with good. Emphasizes God's faithfulness, even in the midst of human betrayal. Highlights the power of forgiveness and redemption.
I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love.